Yo, I'm back at another video, and today I want to talk to you guys about this second place problem when it comes to MMA. We got this new league, the Grandpa Premier League, the Grandpa Fight League, aka GFL. Uh, it just I don't understand why this is still in place. I don't know why this is still in place, and they have a lot of fighters in there. And also, I want to talk about PFL and pretty much every other MMA organization apart from UFC. I want to talk about that, and also the Tony Ferguson problem and the CTE maxing fight league that GFL is going to be. I mean, I don't understand why there are no competitors for UFC, and I genuinely think that none of these MMA promotions can get to the level of UFC because UFC started back in what 1998. I think that's when Dana and the Fertitta brothers, basically the Fertittas, they bought UFC, and then they started. They were burning cash. They were making a lot of losses, and I think finally now they're making a decent amount of profit. And of course, the UFC has many flaws, but the other alternatives for UFC are GFL and PFL. Let us be very honest. Nobody watches PFL. The only PFL fight that made some kind of sense was the fight between Usman Nurmagomedov and Paul Hughes. And the reason we were all paying attention to that fight is because Usman is Habib's brother, and the reason we pay a lot of attention to Habib is what he's because of his UFC record and the kind of dominance that he put on. That's the reason every person with the last name Nurmagomedov, we pay attention and we want to watch them fight. All of that kind of goes back to UFC again. Like none of these, like PFL or GFL, I don't think they would even exist if there was no UFC. And the problem is, all of these people they want to compete with UFC. I just don't think they can. And Dana, whenever he's out there, he just talks about how these are all B leagues, and technically he's not wrong. These are all B leagues. The GFL, out of all these shenanigans, does not make any sense. I don't want to say nothing bad about them, but I will have to because I'm making a video. And majority of the things that the GFL people were doing, it makes no sense. They've got Tony Ferguson in there, and there was this video where Tony Ferguson was talking about how he's going to be getting into this zone and how he's talking about why he's fighting and why he's 40 years old, by the way. um, he was talking about how he's not in the right place. Now he's back in the right place and he's going to change and he's going to show everyone how he's Tony Ferguson. It's Tony time again. Well, there is no Tony time, my friend. There is no Tony time anymore. Look at this record. He last lost to just he started his losing record or his losing streak after he lost against Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz, Bobby King Green, aka King Green, and then Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chiesa. Look, a prime Tony Ferguson would never lose to someone like King Green or Paddy Pimblett or Michael Chiesa, not even Michael Chandler. I think prime Tony Ferguson would defeat Michael Chandler just by his volume and pressure. But he's not Tony Ferguson anymore. He was on a crazy 12 fight winning streak after defeating Michael Johnson. And even before defeating Michael Johnson, he was on a really good winning streak. He only lost to Jamie Tony. Yeah, I mean, Tony had a really, really good record. He was never really the most athletic person, or like, I think he was a really athletic person, but he was never really the strongest fighter or the fastest fighter. He was just a really, really creative fighter. Whatever he lacked in basic fundamentals, he was never basically like his basics were never clear. He was never a good boxer or a good wrestler or a good jiu-jitsu fighter either. But it's just that he was able to mix the martial arts in such a way which was very unique to him. Whatever Iri Prohachka is doing in light heavyweight, Tony Ferguson was doing this back in lightweight. Like 5 years back, 10 years back, he was doing the same thing. I would say 10, probably 10 to 8 years back. I think prime Tony was probably 2016, 17. I think that is when it was prime Tony. But now he's 40 years old, and every time he shows up inside the octagon or inside the cage, you just feel bad for him. As a fight fan, you feel bad for him. And also, he has had some really bad cases of schizophrenia. He has had some really bad attacks. His wife had to call they had to call 911 because he was behaving in a really paranoid manner. he was just behaving really erratically, and then he had to be taken. So with everything going on, getting into something like the GFL, I don't think it makes any sense. He's only going to get more and more brain damage, more and more CTE. It kind of makes me really sad about what happens to the fighters. You're like the best of the best fighters. Like Tony is a legend of this game. Everybody, Tony, Tyron Woodley, Fabricio Verdum, Anthony Pettis, Junior Dos Santos, Luke Rockhold, they're all legends in their own right. Each and every one of them is a champion, by the way. Tyron Woodley, former UFC champion. Verdum, UFC champion. Anthony Pettis, UFC champion. Junior Dos Santos, I think, yeah, he was a UFC champion. Rockhold, UFC champion. Frank Mir, I think he was, I don't know if he was actually a UFC champion. I don't think he was a champion, but he did defeat Brock Lesnar once, I believe. Andre Arlovsky, I think he was a champion as well. And Barao, he was, I think, the interim champion, if I'm not mistaken. He lost to TJ Dillashaw. I remember that. Benson Henderson, again, a champion. I don't know if he was a UFC champion, but he was a Strikeforce champion, and he did defeat Nate Diaz and a lot of other fighters. And then there are other fighters like Marlon Moraes, Wanderlei Silva, again, a legend. I don't think Wanderlei Silva will be fighting. I think he will be the manager of some weird, whatever they're going to call it. It just makes no sense. Like this entire GFL thing does not make any sense. It kind of looks like a, I don't want to say it, but it starts with S and ends with an M, SCAM, whatever. Now, we don't know if this will actually be successful. I hope they're successful, and I hope that these fighters, they make a decent amount of money because they kind of deserve it. Let us be very honest about it. Especially someone like Tony or Pettis, he has something like many of these fighters, they cannot really function if they do not fight. They do not have any kind of other skills apart from fighting. That is why someone like GSP or a Mighty Mouse, they're really, and even Habib, for that, the reason I really, really respect Habib is because he knew when to stop. He stopped when he was at his prime, in his prime. Uh, and he has set up a business. He is training other fighters. He has his own gym in, I believe, in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi, and he has done something for himself. And you got to respect him. Or you can turn up like Connor, who just he's on going on a crazy streak and saying a lot of whatever I don't know whatever he's saying. He's saying a lot of weird stuff, but that's Connor, and we don't want someone to go like that. And I mean, someone I don't know what Stephen Bonner, like something happened with him. I think he passed away and everything. Like a lot of these fighters, like former fighters, they've all been going through a lot. And something like GFL, I think they're just taking advantage of these fighters. I don't know if this will actually take place. They apparently GFL started in 2023, but they could not. They have been figuring out the logistics. They have been figuring out the venues. It took them a year to figure it out, and I think their first fight is going to take place in April, which I don't know how if that will actually take place. I genuinely do not know. And also they have this team structure. There are 6 teams: Miami, Sao Paulo, London, New York City, Dubai, Los Angeles, and they had a draft. And that draft, who they got for the commentary team? They got Brendan Schaub and then Mike Goldberg, and there was this blonde woman, I don't know her name. And then there was this really weird guy who looks like a rock star from the 80s, like a really goth rock star kind of a vibe. I have no idea who that guy was. Yeah, he apparently fought. He was a really weird guy, and he was in Karate Combat as well. I don't exactly know his name, but I have seen him in a couple of places. Yeah, that was a weird guy, but they've got all like it's like they've been able to find some of the weirdest people to make these fights, make GFL. I think I probably talked about GFL briefly, but yeah, I mean it just makes no sense in my opinion. And also the draft, I don't think the draft actually took place. They just took they just decided to give each fighter a team, assign them a team where they actually train. For example, manager is Thiago Elvis is the manager, and they're training in Miami. Look, who's training in Miami? JDS, Despain, that is our Robeles Despain. By the way, this dude, everyone was saying that he would be the next, Francis Ngannou. The dude got destroyed. Thiago Santos, Felipe Lins, Yoel Romero, like each and every fighter who you see here, who are there, I think they're all actually living in Miami, and that's the reason they are assigned Team Miami. I think, except for Anthony Pettis, I think he's from California. I am not sure about it, but he's probably also from Miami. I'm not exactly sure. But each and every fighter that you see here, Pace Van Zandt, Hannah Goldy, like each and every one of them that you see here are actually from Miami, and that's the reason they're assigned Team Miami. How convenient. Lyoto Machida is the manager of Sao Paulo. Bruno Caprera, whatever. Couple is I have no idea who this guy is, but Fabricio Verdum, Mauricio Hua, Shogun, and Shogun is still fighting, man. Shogun lost to yeah, I mean, Shogun is still fighting. It makes no sense. I mean, the amount of CDE, the amount of brain damage that these fighters have taken over the years must be through the roof. Patrick Pitbull, Julio Ars, Rafael Assunção, like all of these fighters, they are all exactly from Brazil, and I think they also train probably in Brazil. They're still living in Brazil. They're probably Brazilian citizens or American. I'm not exactly sure. But just because they're all Brazilians, they're about part of Team Sao Paulo. Wow, what a convenient thing. Tanner Bozer, Ilir Latifi, Alexander Gustafsson, they're all from Europe, and so they're the part of the London team. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And everything else is the same thing. Every fighter who is from that area is assigned a team, except for Alexei Olenek. I think he's Russian, I believe, but he is from Team New York. I don't know how if it makes any sense. But he was an interesting guy, by the way. He was throwing a lot of Ezekiel chokes on people, like Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is training in New York apparently. I hope it something good happens out for Kevin Lee. The dude was a really talented fighter, had really all the fighting like he had all the attributes, a really athletic guy, a really good wrestler, but he just could not mix the martial art. And it's just that under pressure, he lost to El Ayacuinta out of all people. So yeah, not exactly that great of a fighter. By Nguyen, I have no idea what the hell that means. But yeah, I mean, almost each and every one out of these fighters are not exactly in their prime. And Team Dubai, they look really good. They look really good. They got Todd Duffy, who is really. Todd Duffy was one of the hardest hitting fighters, and he was in a movie. I remember watching that movie. I think it was Never Back Down 2. Really good movie if you are an MMA fan. Really funny movie, to be honest. I mean, it's a good movie, to be honest, yeah. I would have watched it again, nah. But when I watched it, it was just really fun. They've got Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov, they've got Tyron Woodley, Tofik Usayev, Tamiruz Magulov. Tamiruz Magulov, I think he can defeat each and every other lightweight fighter in here because he was someone who was fighting in UFC for very recently, and he was a good fighter. I think he had I don't know, something happened with him as well. He was twitching right in the middle of the fight. That's when he decided to quit UFC. He decided to retire. But Team Dubai looks good. I don't know, like none of the teams, to be honest, looks good. But again, Team Dubai has Cain Velasquez and Javier Mendez is going to be the coach, basically, AKA. And Cain Velasquez, they've given some work to Cain Velasquez, which is kind of interesting and nice. And yeah, I mean, it makes no sense. Like the entire GFL doesn't make any sense. And as far as PFL, I have no idea what goes on in there. I only saw one fight. There was Paul Hughes versus, who was it? Usman Nurmagomedov. And apart from that, they've got one good fighter in the middleweight division. I think this is the champion, Johnny Eblin. I think that is his name, who's half Korean, half American. He's a really good wrestler. But yeah, it is what it is. When it just makes no sense, to be honest. I just wanted to rant about GFL. It makes no sense. And they're putting Tony Ferguson and Fabricio Verdum and all of these fighters who have taken a lot of damage, a lot of CTE, especially someone like Tony, because he has shown really bad signs in the past of, where his family members had to call 911. It's not exactly a nice thing to see someone like him get inside the ring and get in more damage because he is going to take more damage. Yeah, it just does not make it just does not make a lot of sense in my opinion. I did not have any other topic to make videos about today. And yeah, I mean, by the way, UFC Imavov versus Adesanya has already started, so I will be talking about that tomorrow, and I need to watch that fight. So yeah, I guess that's it from today's video. Write in the comment section what you've thought about, what are your thoughts about GFL and PFL and all of these organizations who are not UFC. And I'll probably make a detailed video about the non-UFC MMA organizations and what they can do to improve. But yeah, that'll take some time. But apart from me, yeah, enjoy this video. Drop a like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I've got very few subscribers. And yeah, peace out.